Welcome to Issues, and I'm your host, Richard Smith. We're very happy to have you with us this evening, and we have a very special guest, Chris Crumpler, magnificent basketball player, and someone who is involved with young people trying to make their lives better. And Chris is a great motivational speaker. Let's learn some more about Chris Crumpler. Good evening, Chris.
Hey, how you doing, Richard?
Doing fine. It's really good to have you with us.
It's nice to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
I went to your website. I want to read something that I took off your website. It says, "The best and most beautiful thing in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart." Elaborate on that for me, please.
Well, as you know, it came from Helen Keller, and she couldn't even see. And it really expressed from a spiritual perspective faith. Like, faith is what makes life life, you know, the dreams and the hopes. But the physical touching of this or seeing a light, that has a place. But to do something that your faith has created in this world is something that moves your heart, because that's where your passion drives. So it's just something that I put on the website to kind of inspire people.
Very good. Now, again, I understand that you were adopted at the age of 3.
I was 3 months.
3 months?
3 months
3
old.
months.
Yeah.
Explain how that came about.
Well, my mother and father who raised me, who adopted me, they was down in Tampa to see their family reunion. And my dad's sister was running an orphanage, so she couldn't get off for the family reunion. So on the way back home, my dad said, well, let's stop and see my sister, because I only come to Tampa once a year. On their way there, they had to use the bathroom. I got there like 2 days before that day. I was in a room crying by myself because as a new baby, my aunt, she doesn't cuddle the babies because you will always have to do it, so she lets you cry it out. But I was right by the bathroom crying. So my mother went back there, used the bathroom, came back and just let my aunt know that, hey, this baby is crying. He's sweating up all his clothes. He's red. She said, oh, just leave him back there. Let that baby holler. He'll go to sleep. And so my mom was just like, okay. So she puts me back, and my dad's at the door, and he just says, I want him.
Wow. Oh, my goodness.
And this is so unlike my dad. And so they go home, nothing. My mom laughs at it. You know, she thought it was kind of cute. They go home and they get to the house, and then over the phone, my mom laughingly tells her daughter, my sister. My sister happens to live in Sarasota, close to Tampa. And so she said, yeah. She said, Aunt Bertha? She said, yeah. So she said, I'm going to go by and see the baby. So my sister goes by and sees me and asks, you know, my aunt, can she just keep the baby for the weekend? And she said, well, yeah, just, you know, sign this and just, you know, be close, but you can watch him for me. And she actually took me down to my parents. And my mom said, I was down there illegally, but she said once I got into the yard, that was it. There was no way they was turning back. So it took them a month to go through all the legal proceedings, but then I officially became their baby.
Were there other brothers and sisters?
Yeah, my mom and dad raised 6 kids. So I had 2 brothers and 4 sisters, and they was all 18 and up. So they was in their mid to late 40s, did their whole raising children, and just going on a family reunion, just stopping by to see his sister, and they ended up raising another child.
Now, Chris, I know that God is a special part of your life.
Yes.
As you look back at that incident in terms of when you got adopted, does it appear that God had something to do with that?
God had everything to do with it. I mean, you look at nobody planned any of it. Nothing about my life was planned by any person. Everything was a oops. Everything was an accident. Everything, somebody, you know, my mother who found me eventually on Facebook, you know, cried every birthday because...
This is your birth mother?
My birth mother. She found me on Facebook about 4 years ago, and we actually have a great relationship. And she cried on every birthday because I was born the day before she was born. So people thought she was mad that she was getting older. You know, one of those things that women just kind of lie about their age, but that's not what she was crying. She was crying because she always knew she had an adopted black son, because my mother's white, that her other 2 white children never met before, never heard of, never seen, just knew that he existed. So all of that, to bring all of that together in a way that how it flows now is nothing but God.
Okay. Now, you said that your mother is white.
Yes.
Your birth mother is white,
Yes.
and she had other children. Have you met?
I met all of my brothers and sisters and my mom and dad.
What was that meeting like, and what is the relationship like now?
The meeting, we had it on the week before Christmas. I flew into Florida. We made, first of all, the DNA test was done. She said, if you're my son, your father is in Mississippi. And so we did the DNA test. It confirmed that he was my father. And my mom was ready for me to hate her, and my dad was just ready to explain everything. And it was like talking to an old friend that you haven't seen for 20 years, but when y'all talk, it's like you talked yesterday. That's how the conversation went for 2 hours, and we just talked the whole day and went to my sister's apartment, sat around, played a video game. When I had dinner, it was because God had convicted me of all of my past. So I wasn't taking on anything in the conversation, because I was grateful that I exist, because I could have been aborted. You know what I mean? So I was very grateful just to have life. Okay.
Now, let's kind of bring it up to date.
Yep.
How did you end up here in Bermuda?
Onion. Lack of a better word, an onion. My college sweetheart. We met in college. She walked on campus and walked in my eyesight, and haven't walked out since.
And that was where? Where did you?
Flagler College.
Oh, there in Florida.
In Florida,
okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you have children?
I have 2 beautiful children. My daughter, Jada, she's 6, and my son, CJ Chris Jr., he's 4.
Okay. Now, maybe some of our viewers may know you because of your basketball expertise. So explain how that developed in terms of basketball, and how, once you got to Bermuda, how did you use that skill of basketball?
Yeah, well, it was natural for me. I have a natural gift that God's given me to play the game. I'm very passionate. I'm very competitive. All those are just gifts that God's given me. I can't take really no credit for it. But it allowed me to come to Bermuda and get a scholarship and meet my wife. And when I came here, I loved it so much I couldn't stop. So I joined the national team and ended up coaching youth. And to date, I have coached over 700 Bermudians basketball.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Are you still presently coaching?
I still coach. I'm currently the president of Bermuda Youth Basketball Federation.
Well, explain that a little bit. How many teams are involved and so forth?
Well, basically through an assessment of local basketball, it needed to be a one-stop shop and accountability structure that was built in for youth basketball in particular. So we work in conjunction with the BBA as their youth body to kind of just build an infrastructure and programs, everything from connecting domestic programs to building a national program from ages all the way to 10 to 19.
Do you ever, teams that ever go overseas to play?
Yeah, I've traveled with multiple teams. Matter of fact, last year, Global Cup, we took teams to Disney Wild World of Sports. We took 50 Bermudian players away.
How did they do? How did the Bermudians do?
We won 4 games altogether. We took a pilot team the year before. We lost all of our games. So just not only us to come back, but to come back with 4 more teams additionally and win some games just shows the growth in the sport and in our development.
Now you do some mentoring, and you started a mentoring program. Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Well, 2012, I think you're referring to what we did with Mirrors with the primary school.
Yes.
It was just Mirrors wanted to create a pilot program, and they Principal Gladstone at the time, he was adamant about me taking it on, and that's what I did. And we met and went through the procedures, and we talked about just matching up some young men who are at risk with other positive male figures in the community as they transition, particularly the ones transitioning to middle school. Now,
was that difficult in terms of finding mentors to match with these young men?
No, I think because we were so organized. Kim Jackson, her passion to make sure that everything was in order, and our principal, Mr. Gladstone at the time, to get out to the community. St. David's community had a great response to match up with the Littles. Now, consistency and follow through, like those are the things that's more challenging, because even with that, you need a full-time person to kind of monitor the progress of it as well. Yeah.
Now, in terms of the mentoring program and your involvement with young people, how did that commitment develop in you for young people?
It started with, I joined Big Brothers Big Sisters in Florida, and it went from doing a weekly tutorial at a math class to all of a sudden, my senior year in college, Kurt was with me every single weekend. So he stayed with me Friday night, and I dropped him off to school Monday morning. And so that relationship kind of showed me why I need to be giving back. Because one time in particular, I didn't have any money. And so I know he liked to go to the movies. I take him out. He has a great time hanging with a college kid. I have my own car, I got my own apartment. Mm-hmm. He's enjoying himself hanging. And I said, well, I don't know if you want to stay with me tonight because I have no money. He said, I don't care if you don't have no money. I just want to be with you. And his growth.
How old was he?
He was 10 at the time.
Okay.
He just wanted to be with me. And we hung out, and I was with him for 3 straight years. He got involved with the church. He got baptized. He became one of our kid helpers on the college basketball team, ball boys. He came to all my home games. And so he really impacted me as far as I was getting a business degree, but I saw the importance of giving back and getting involved with young people from that experience.
Now, again, you brought up Christ in terms of your mentoring. This young man got baptized. Your commitment and relationship with Christ, where is that coming from?
I just can't live without him. You know, I always call it my secret weapon, because some people they want to know what I'm doing in the basketball court. They want to know some business ideas, how I came up with certain things, or they want to know how to do with your marriage, or raise your children, or be a good teacher, or be a good coach, or you're a good motivational speaker. And they want to ask me all these different things about what tactic am I using. And the source is the same every time. I love Jesus Christ. I spend time with him every single day. He is my right, he is my left, he is my up, he is my down. Without him, I am absolutely nothing.
Is this something that you got from your parents? Or?
Oh, yeah. My mom and dad was old school, Southern family. You know, you go into church whether you want to or not. You go into Sunday school whether you want to or not. And that discipline, and it was key in that, is the discipline. And as a parent now, I see so many parents ask their kids what do they want to do. And they're asking a kid. Living in this world, fundamentally what your kid needs to develop. And so my parents were really good about training me, not necessarily asking me all the time what I wanted. And that, transformed and transferred over to me as an adult, that I don't do a bunch of stuff that I want to do, but I do things that I have to do.
So that's what has made Christ very special to you. We're talking with Chris Crumpler. We're going to take a break, come back in a little bit, and learn some more. Welcome back. We've been talking with Chris Crumpler. We've heard something about his ability to motivate young people. We've heard how he was adopted and his birth parents and meeting his birth parents. We've heard what developed or how he developed that relationship with Christ. Now let's talk a little bit more to Chris Crumpler. Chris, gangs in Bermuda. You said you've been here 8 years. Was the threat of gang violence as prevalent 8 years ago as it is now?
No, the threat of violence wasn't, but it was there. It was there. I started in a homeschool at Creative Learning in 2006, volunteering, and those boys there were involved in gangs at the time, and there were signs. But people were still doing that, the Bermuda gangs are fake, or they're not serious, or they're not real. And those fellowships, those bonds, those relationships that they was building, even at that tender age, was serious. And the violent aspect came later, but the aspect of just fellowship, that's a natural instinct for a boy. is to fellowship with other boys.
What do you think are some ingredients that lead young men and now young women to join gangs? What would be some reasons?
You know, the one piece is family, you know, and the lack thereof, you know, because that's what a gang really is. It's your family. Like, you're willing to ride or die for these people. And like for me and most of us who quote unquote are not caught up in that type of gang, we have our own different gangs. We love our parents. Like, we're willing to give our last to them. A lot of those guys can't really say that. You know, they don't really have parents, if they have one. And at the crust of it, that's the foundation.
Are you saying that the young people who join gangs, if you really look at it, there is something that's lacking in the family development or in the home?
Yeah, because it's some people that's involved that have a mother and a father, some people that have educated parents, some people have people that have been in church. It's not, you know, what your identification is as far as in the world perspective, as far as your title. It's making me feel loved and appreciated and validated and support, and you're paying attention to the details. Those are, and it's hard because a lot of times you have to look yourself in the mirror, because the children are a reflection of the society that they live in. So if you want to see what's wrong with the children.
Now, you're saying a lot right there, Chris. All right, if we look at what's happening with this gang culture, and if that's a reflection of the Bermudian culture, then you're saying we may be, as a culture, as the Bermudian culture, we may be heading down the wrong street.
Yes, but I think the bigger thing is to understand you got to take your heads out of the sand. You can't sit back and try to say, you can't blame kids for a culture. You can't blame young people for a culture. They simply are a reflection of the society that they live in. When I say that, they are representing the reflection of the mirror that they see.
Let me ask, most of the gang prevention program that I hear of, they're focusing on the gang members. Is that where the focus should be, or should the focus be on the parents and on the family that's bringing these young people up?
Well, first, identifying that person, you have to do that. But we call it wraparound service or wraparound process, where you connect to, you see the person is in the center, but you put a loved one, you put a service provider, then we're the case management piece, and you put some type of pro-social behavior that you connect to the person. So you wrap that around the individual and you consume them with that, and you document the process as they go through. But the willingness to want to get involved, the willingness to want to get engaged, that's the place you got to get people, period. You know, if they're not willing to do it or to change or to get out, then you have another set of problems.
And that's where it was headed. Is there a certain age that the program that you described is most effective, in age of the young people, I mean? Compare someone who is 16 to someone who is 10. Is a program like that more effective at age 10 as compared to age 16?
Well, I don't know that, because we haven't got a chance to do like a hard case study, particularly here locally. But what we're doing is we're doing the ages 17, 18 and up, and they were going down. But it takes a lot of manpower, a lot of time, and a lot of skill to engage this population, because the reality is most people are afraid of them, and then other people just don't really recognize how to engage with them in a serious way. They can do the high and by, but I'm talking about really engage where they actually open up and become vulnerable with you. And then what do you do with that once you get it? Because that took a big step for them to get there. But if you don't take that and then build them up with it, they go back in an even deeper dark space.
You know, you said that most people are afraid of them. And I know many people are. I hear people now who, after dark, they don't want to drive or even walk down certain parts of town. That fear that some individuals have, is it ill-founded, or is it just being sensible and realistic about life?
I think a combination of both, you know. But love conquers fear, and that's how I look at it. Like, from the work that I did even at Cedar Bridge, it was all about identifying behavior. And so many teachers would like to ask, like, Chris, come in, or Mr. Crumpler, come in, I just want you to help me with the student. And your natural eye is find the problem. Well, my eye as a behavior therapist would be to find the genius. So I would never really see the behavior, because the behavior is not the source or it's not the power, but the genius in the person that they show, whether they show loyalty, or whether they show willingness to work as a team, or whether they show ambition. Now, the effects of an action may kind of misinterpret what the genius is, but that's what you try to do when you're identifying young people. Is you're not watching, did they run the violation, did they talk back to you? So many people get caught up on those things. When you're really analyzing a young person, where is their genius? And then once you find the genius, you build them from there.
I think you're quite right, because I'm even thinking about my particular experience with young people. I think our focus may be too much on the negative instead of building up those things that are positive. In your opinion, is it possible to eradicate the gang culture and the gang violence in a place as small as Bermuda, or are we just doomed to just kind of controlling it for a while?
No, the devil is a lie. You can do anything through Christ who strengthens you, but you have to work together. You have to come to a unified front. But it's just behavior, and history shows that behavior constantly changes through mankind, and this is simply a season that we're going through. This is the thing, but we can't eradicate it for sure. But working together, putting past your personal agenda and putting forth your love and your effort in the way that you can be best utilized with the resources that you have.
Just have a few more minutes left, but since young girls are now joining gangs, is it the same, in your opinion, is it the same reason that young girls join gangs as compared to young boys?
Yes and no, because, it was a reason why the boys started it and the girls followed. Because the natural, and this is my humble opinion, the natural flow of how things develop with just society is that women look for men for leadership, just generally. There's always exceptions to the rule. And so the men or the young men has set the stage on what to follow or where to follow, because a lot of these girls actually have relationships with these guys. And so part of having a relationship with the man is that subconsciously you're looking for guidance. And unfortunately, that segment of Bermuda, which is not a large segment, is leading in an antisocial way, which then filters to the girls that follow them as well. And then they come to know each other, they create a group, they do what they do, but once again, it's something that can be solved, in my humble opinion.
Now, we see a lot of young men kind of sitting on the wall, and there are some employers in Bermuda that really stay away from employing young Bermudian males because they say, well, they come to work late and they want to leave early. They're not dependable workers. Have you heard that?
I have heard it, and I have it in certain discussions, I must admit. But I want to go back to first the sitting on the wall piece. Okay. I was at Cedar Hill one time, and I got a chance to talk to some powerful men. It was the middle of the night. It was on a Tuesday night. It was almost midnight. And they were sitting on the wall in the middle of the night out of respect of not disturbing their household. Because they... And,
other people will say, why are those kids on the wall? Yeah. Why aren't they home? But they didn't want to disturb the home environment. So, wow.
Yeah, because, they didn't want to be drinking and smoking and listening to their type of music while their family is trying to rest and while they have grandchildren.
So they were showing respect for their family.
Once again, finding the genius.
Yes.
But I know that. The general public don't really get that,
Yeah.
but I know because I had the conversation with
Yes.
them. I went to them in the middle of the night. But that's my work. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And that's the gift that God has given me. But the point being is that if you never have the conversation,
Yeah.
if you never sit down and have a meal, you are solely misguided in your interpretations of what a image looks like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Compared to what it really is.
Yeah, you're correct.
So that goes in connection to everything else.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to this pop, because these guys are powerful beyond measure, man. These guys are gifted, talented, and creative. They know how to come together. They'll work all through the night, all through the day. You just got to find their purpose. And being disenfranchised or marginalized, they feel that. They feel like Bermuda is not owned by them, that it's owned by somebody else, and they're not given a rightful stage to step on and to take their rites of passage, to know that they're the future generation. They hear it, but it's not felt at all. And so for me, it's about creating the opportunity by making systemic change in the community and how they perceive this population so that they can be filled with that power to take on their purpose.
Let me ask you, what can churches do in terms of stemming and seeing the genius in these young people?
I think confronting the issue, not dodging, and coming with a sense of spirit to serve, not to regulate or control, because you don't know. Each individual is different. So for me, I don't come in with the solutions. I come in with the service mindset, to listen, to hear, to engage. That then tells me what I should be doing or where is the gaps and who I need to go to for help. And the reality is we get so caught up with the routine of church, unfortunately, that we never actually stop and say we're getting older and the less young people are coming. Somebody has to pause for a minute and go outside and start talking, because there's young people here, but they're not there, and start to just engage and serve to figure out what that is. Now, everybody's not gifted for that, and everybody can't relate to that. I get that, but the conversation starts the opportunity for those dynamics to take place, you know, and we're going to be working with the churches in the near future about how they can play a role even in supporting us.
That is going to be my next question. If someone would like a Chris Crumpler to come to their church and work with the young people, how do they make that contact?
TeamStreetSafe.com. If you're talking about as it relates to gangs and just disenfranchised young men in particular, our focus right now as men because of our staff and because of our support, but we understand there's an element of girls and women as well. TeamStreetSafe.com is a website you could go to and has our basic contact information.
Okay. And how are you funded?
We're funded through private, and we have a couple foundations who have now come on and supported us, and we have now some churches that come on and supported us. But we're going to lay out a plan in the new year where everybody can play a part, not just supporting us, but seeing the work that we're doing and the men that we're empowering.
Okay. Chris, it's been great having you. We thank you for being on Issues. We've been talking with Chris Crumpler, and you've heard his contact information. Chris has been working with young people. He's a motivator of young people, even though he's a young person himself. He knows what it means to be part of a gang, and he knows how to find the genius in gang members. So again, please get in contact with Chris Crumpler. You've heard his contact information, and we look forward to you joining us again next week on Issues.